A little shorter this morning. Hopefully you're not heartbroken. Who has a question this morning? Yeah.
Are there any things that you see as dangers for people that have this vision that we're explaining today of how Father? Are there any particular dangers that you see? Weaknesses that people that hey, I should watch out for?
I believe I do. What's the danger? What are the danger or the impediment to the vision that I've tried to explain this morning? Or the biggest one, or the ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For someone who wants to do that, what
Yeah.
do you need to watch out?
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's distractions. I remember as a young father, and certainly anyone can comment on this if they want. And it's dangerous what I'm about to say, because whenever you say a certain activity, then people say, oh, the pastor thinks that activity is wrong and no one should do it. So that's not what I'm saying at all. But I still remember, as a young father, watching some of my contemporaries who were just consumed with, I'll say it, there's nothing wrong with it. I used to like to do it, and I still do it every once in a while, playing softball. And I knew they had little children at home. I knew their wives were working extremely hard, and they were just really, really consumed with this. And once you get involved in that, you know, you have playoffs, you have these things you have to do, you have to be there. I think that's just one example of a distraction. Now, I'm not saying that every time you play softball it's a distraction. It might be, right? You might get yourself hurt, hurt your arm, or whatever. So I don't want to, I hate to say softball because it sounds like, oh, we're not supposed to play softball now. Not what I'm saying at all. But I believe the biggest danger is absolute distractions. Because it's not always that exciting to be home with the kids and your wife, you know. It's almost be seen as like a loser. But how can you teach your children if you're not with them? How can you be a husband if you're not with your wife? And I see much distractions, and I haven't talked about this morning, but I know I've talked to some of you about this individually. One of the things that I'm still trying to figure out is this great anger. How many of you, I ask right now, how many of you know anyone in your experience, any son, maybe 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, who is still, he has been home, excuse me, for years. Hasn't been home for years, but he's still angry at his father. Anybody here know anyone like that? Yeah, a few of you do. What's up with that? I think, Conrad, there's a connection there with distractions. That Dad was distracted when I was looking for that guidance. I think that's part of it. I have not put my finger on it yet entirely. It just seems like an epidemic. I've known people like who just angry at their father. They haven't been home for 15 years. Still mad. What's going on? There's a lot more that could be said about that. It's a good question. We need to think about that. Yes?
Proverbs 1:8 says, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching." If that isn't there, he's not giving instruction. It's got to be there.
Yeah. It almost sounds too simple to say, right? If you're not there, if you're distracted, you can't.
How are you going to instruct? And we all know this as dads, right? You know, Christ taught us a lot. Christ was a teacher. Yes, he taught as sermons, but how was most of Christ's teaching transmitted? Was most of it not kind of like along the way where they're walking someplace, right? And it just kind of came up, and he taught them things. Is that not why we talk of God's law when we walk by the way, when we lie down, when we rise up? Because those teaching opportunities, and if you're not there, You're not teaching. It's just that simple. Yes, Jeremiah.
So probably all of us would have different things that distracts us, or it could be different for each person. But when I heard Conrad's question, the word that came into my mind was ambition. And I've heard different people talk about ambition over the years. And I read John Adams' biography a while back, and he
Was that by McCullough?
yeah. And he mentions ambition as something that he struggled with. And
That Adams himself struggled with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have he called it a foul fiend.
It's called ambition a foul fiend.
Foul fiend. And he went on to talk about it in a negative way.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe, especially as men, maybe,
Yeah.
we need to be careful about
Yeah.
the wrong kind of ambition.
But yeah, that's well said. You know,
I mean, if I were to say, it would almost sound foreign right now if I said, men, how about if we become ambitious to being the best husband we can be and the best father we can be? People say, well, that's not ambition. That's just like your basic job or whatever. You know, that's what you just do. You got to be ambitious for other stuff. But, and what he's really talking about here is ambition that takes you away from your real responsibilities, is what he's saying there. That's a good word. Yes.
That reminds me of one of our uncles who was a missionary, and he was, the cartoonist, and he went all around, and he was, everyone hailed him as such a good missionary, but he was never home, and his kids grew up they didn't like him, and he didn't leave a good legacy, even though he was out doing God's work. At home he wasn't, and I don't know, it's a different kind of ambition, I guess.
it was definitely ambition.
It is what Jeremiah was talking about. And without going into it too deeply, without dragging out our family's dirty laundry too much, that happened in my extended family. One of my uncles was, worldwide known. Walking to people, oh, you hear my last name? Oh, yeah. You're that guy's nephew. It wasn't my Uncle Nate. It was a different one. He was a great cartoonist. He was a really good speaker. He was one of those guys just really easy to listen to. And he traveled worldwide. And people knew about him. I'd run into people all over the place. Yeah, I knew your uncle. I heard him speak. And I didn't know it until I got to know my cousins. And it was bad. Let's just say that. It was really bad. He was ambitious, but not ambitious to be a father. One thing I think Abraham was that, right? Abraham had all this stuff, but Abraham had a really serious ambition to make sure his son Isaac was a godly young man. Abraham was ambitious that way. He passed on the faith to his son Isaac. Yes, Dave.
Reading through Paul David Tripp's book, Parenting. I don't know if anyone here has read that one right now. But he talks a lot about one thing that we need to be very careful with as parents. As parents is that we don't raise our children as our own portrayal, I guess. Like most people are like their children. I want them in Harvard. I want them here and here and here. Get it. But anyhow, he talks about it as parents. We need to be very careful, as fathers especially, because we want our children to succeed.
Yeah.
It's talked about in Christian circles all the time. We need to be successful.
Yeah.
But he says that becomes idolatry in the end.
Well, we do want to be successful, but
What's our definition of success? That's the critical thing, right there. How hard are we working at true success? How hard are we working as dads to be the best dads we can to our children, best husbands to our wives? Yes.
Your last phrase just said what I wanted to emphasize is that it seems to me that one of the most important things we can do as fathers is to be excellent husbands. Because our children find great security in a stable, loving relationship. And actually, in my view, the marital relationship needs to be actually stronger than the relationship between father and child. The children need to understand the priorities, or they can get a really skewed view of things of who they are and their own importance.
Yeah, if the bond between mom and dad isn't
What it's supposed to be, then you can get a competition between loving the children between mom and dad, and that is a dangerous spot to be in. Now you're making children make decisions about who loves them the most and that kind of a thing, and it's a complete disaster. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a home like that, where I knew my father was committed to my mother and to us children. He never came to my came to 1 or 2 soccer games, never came to a baseball game. So he was not the right father according to a lot of standards, but he was definitely committed to my mother, and he was definitely committed to protecting us kids from bad influences. Yeah, but I played soccer. That was a bad influence. Yeah, shouldn't play soccer. No, I'm just kidding. But the TV, my father hated it. That's why we went to this Christian school in the 60s, because my father didn't trust public education even back then. And as I grew up, I was able to go to my father for guidance. Now, he was not the normal good father. He didn't talk very much. He didn't spend a whole lot of time with me. But I knew he was committed to my mother. I never questioned it. And so I grew up in a pretty secure home. It was a wonderful thing. Yes?
So I've been studying Proverbs 31.
yes.
And I've had a couple of discussions where there are some, I would say they're my more liberal Christian contacts who would say, well, the wife has to do everything and the father's off at the gate, like he's never there. Can you balance this for me?
Yeah.
So what's the...
Yeah.
So what's happening there is, I think Proverbs 31 is, throughout the rest of the book, we have, as John mentioned earlier, the law of your father, law of your mother. Foolish son's an embarrassment, a shame to his father, and a grief to his mother, that kind of thing. I think it's sort of talking, well, not sort of talking, it's demonstrating that a foolish son affects his mother and father the same way, but a wise son affects his mother and father the same way as well. Throughout the entire first 30 chapters, you have the instruction of father and mother, and even talking to people as son, my son, right? I think what Proverbs 31 is doing is showing the business of the home, not the instruction of the home, if you will. Because Proverbs 31 is pretty much all business.
Yeah, it is.
It's what she's doing. Yes, her husband is at the gates. That's his job. He's out there dispensing justice. But if he's able to be out there at the gates, and see, I think this is the thing that you have to remember about Proverbs here. If that husband is out at the gates, then he must have, it seems to me, have demonstrated that he has wisdom, he has knowledge, he has guidance. He must have been demonstrating that at home. Proverbs 1 through 30, I think, qualifies him to be out of the gates in Proverbs 31. That's the way I see that. Yeah.
It's one line about him and
He's in the
what to
gates.
look for
Right.
in the wife.
Right.
Okay.
He's been addressed
In Proverbs 1 through 30, seems to me. Anybody, someone else that wants to address that, certainly may. Yes, Dave.
But, can we take that in our average work life? Like, what does that look like for, some people are working 18-hour days, Take the Puritans who work from dawn to dusk and, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
To us nowadays, where we're working 40-hour weeks, 5 days, 4 or 5 days a week. Is there a balance there that we, in our time and in history, where it just seems like life is so hectic, that we don't have time to sit at the gates? Like, is it just that we're bad managers, or what is the?
Well, we've given up the gates to the bureaucrats. That's the first thing. I would certainly say it this way. I said the same thing in the Mother's Day sermon. It's beyond irritating to me that you have to work so hard and jump through so many hoops just to hire a maid, for example. Moms could be so much more productive with that. If mom is more productive, then dad is more productive. But I'll say this, children are sensitive, and they understand the difference between a dad who's working hard to support them, really to support them, and a dad who's working hard to get away from them because he truly doesn't want to be home. And that's the real problem in a lot of cases. Dad really doesn't want to be there. His heart is not at home. His heart is out there. Kids will figure that out. And that's what, as dads, we have to make sure that mom and the children know where our heart really, really is. Because if it's not at home, even when you're home, then if it's not really there, kids get it. And they're going to know. Dad doesn't really want to be here. He can't wait to watch TV and get away from us. Doesn't want to talk to us. So that's how I would certainly respond to that. I don't think it's a matter of the time so much as what you really, where your heart really is with your wife and with your children. I think that's the bigger issue. We make it a matter of time, and I think that's still important, but it's a little bit secondary to the true goal. All right, I thank you for your kind attention here this morning.